Happy Monday. Yep, that's weird. That's really really weird, but it's what it is. We now do the show on Monday. I have my weekends back thanks to being fun employed. So hey, we can recap finals now. I never thought that'd be possible. I thought we'd be stuck talking about semis like chumps for the rest of time, but thankfully we have Mondays available. So we're going to be doing the show now Monday mornings as early as we can manage. For some of us, that's going to be difficult. But let's get started with, I think, the most important topic. Quack, how are you today?
I'm very good. I'm very good. I'm better than I would have been if we recorded yesterday morning. I think I worked yesterday. I have a time tracker to like clock what I do, and I didn't get up until like 11, and I still clocked about 14 and a half hours of work/schoolwork before the day was over. Some of it overlapping because we had Subway Superior League on S-Play, which I was covering all day. So I was watching all of that stream, about 10 hours of Counter-Strike back to back. Really good Counter-Strike, which I might mention later. Then I put out an interview, which was with Medisport's CEO, Saken, which I would say you should go watch it. You should go read the article. You might have already seen it. It was on HLTV Short News yesterday. But I got a rough figure for Nilo's buyout. It's a six-figure sum in dollars and euros, but there's a lot of other interesting stuff in there, which like if enough people want to see it, I might just put it up with English subtitles or something. Because it was a really interesting chat. He was a really cool guy, and he talked a lot about how to run an esports team, and it was really fun. And then I just had like two deadlines at school at the same time, so I was kind of fucked yesterday, but today I'm fine.
Yeah, glad to be able to do the show. Oh god, not sure what that is. Found something weird in my coffee. But before we get into the actual topics, we do have to thank the people who make this show viable and basically fun. Those are the members who get access to all these special little perks of extra content, including the BTS, which some idiot didn't start uploading. I don't know why. I think he got sidetracked by a comment he saw. But anyway, yes, they also get access to little privileges and perks, like the ability to vote on certain content decisions, and the higher level members are going to get access to a few special sort of chats, I want to say. Still trying to figure out exactly how and when to do those. I will be putting up polls for those special members in this coming week to figure out how we're going to do it. But yeah, that's essentially the members. There's a good 40 odd of them now, and that's awesome. And yeah, without them, we probably wouldn't be putting the show up on Spotify because that's not free. So
I'd like to shout out one specific member, which I thought was really funny that he's a member. He's this one guy who used to write hate comments under all of my Dust to SE or like articles.
he still hates you. He's just here for me.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Yeah. And then a couple of days ago, he posted like I said something like, "Oh, today's Retake the Week is a banger," and he posted, "When is it coming out? I'm watching the BTS right now," and I'm like, "You're a paying subscriber? Like, what is this?"
Hey, you know, sometimes people just love what they hate.
Yeah.
In this case, you, but I don't think that's the case. Of course, we do have to talk about the main Counter-Strike point of the last week or so, which has been Blast Bounty. That's been... Honestly, I described the format to my dad whilst we were sat at dinner the other night, and he just goes, "Oh, that's pretty cool." Like, as an outsider with zero understanding or knowledge of the scene, the game, or anything, he loved the idea of, like, you know, stick bounties on people's heads, and then underdog teams get to go hunting for them. He thought that was really sick. So, honestly, it's a format that could appeal to neutrals. And I think, despite some controversy, mostly from Kassad, I do think Blast kind of earned a bit of that viewership peak. It wasn't just a coincidence or new lineups or anything like that. It was a good part of this format actually working, being far more interesting than like a Blast opening group stage. So credit to them, that's been a great start. We're going to kick it off with what was, as Quack has described in the show notes, potentially the most culturally significant match of CS.
Yes.
Is it ever? Yes, of all time. Which
yeah, I think could be ever.
I'll make your case because I don't think it ever will be to that extent, but it certainly was an interesting matchup.
We had Imperial Fe go up against Natus Vincere. I don't know why I said it like that, but Navi in their opening game. Very rough game. They, being one of the lower seeded teams, they got one of the last picks for which opponent they wanted to have. So it was like, pick Navi or FaZe or Spirit or Vitality, and they went for Navi. They were invited here because they were high enough on the Valve ranking to make this event. They have also made Katowice. This has caused controversy, which is not unfair to say.
Yep.
But I'm basically, if you didn't see the game, I would say you should go watch the game. It was actually a really fun watch. They had a lot of really fun. Imperial had some tactical rounds where like they were outplaying Navi. There was one in particular, which was when they sold an A fake on Ancient well enough where like, you know, it's that situation where like they still go for the A site after the bomb is planted, not realizing it's on B, and then they're forced into a save. That was really good. And like you had Kat was really damn clutch. Like Kat was winning, I think she won 3 clutches in that game, and Tori then had another one against JL and Wonderful and a couple of more. There's one sick 1v2 with the Deagle. Anyway, I'm not going to talk too much about the CS itself, because the CS itself was probably better from Imperial than most people would have expected. I've heard some people say that like, oh, Imperial FE are they're an ESEA main team, and no women's team is ever going to go above the level of like mid-pack ESEA main, because that's just not possible. I think they definitely played above that level. Like, if you remove the name tags from Imperial FE, I think most people could have said, yeah, these guys are probably somewhere in like the upper levels of advanced, maybe even, you know, like somewhere around there. If you watched it blindly. So because they played fairly well. But anyway, this game single-handedly reached almost 500,000 concurrent viewers, which is, for a regular season game, that's quite a bit. It's not too much when you compare it to like major finals and stuff, but that's quite a bit of viewership. The comparison which is important here is how that compares to every single ESL Impact League game for the past 3 years since it started. So ESL Impact, their stated mission goal, I don't know if this is, but the implied goal of ESL Impact is to bring viewership and to bring exposure to women's teams. And they've done a pretty poor job of that, to be honest. Nobody watches the Impact League, which is a shame. There's probably more investment happening. There's going to be more content and stuff this year. So that's maybe making things a little bit better. But the fact that Blast can play one game with Imperial FE and get more viewers than the league has probably ever had. I didn't check the numbers, but like there's no way that ESL Impact have had 500,000 concurrent viewers, even if you aggregate all the games.
There's been a couple of times during LAN finals when the Brazilians are playing that Gaulish has been co-streaming, and then we've hit like 100k on a game, I think. Might be the peak, 100 to 120k, something like that. But otherwise, no.
Still significantly below, yeah.
It's not even close, and that's with the Brazilian nationalism buff. It's not even that.
Yeah, because that guy accounts for like half of the viewership on every major grand final. Like it's there's a couple of components to this, and I think Blast did a really good job here because they had they obviously wanted a lot of viewership as well, and like they benefit from having good viewership, but I think there's also a component where they felt like, oh, we can really maximize the discussion and like the exposure that could come out of this game, and it was kind of clear to me that they really did it with a particular direction. So first of all, there was an article which dropped a couple of days before the game. It was written by Animo. I'm going to shout out. Most of the stuff on Blast homepage is written by him. I usually wildly disagree with his opinions, but I talked to him because I was really impressed with this actual article. And it was basically like the day before the game, they dropped an article with a headline that Imperial FE is the most dominant team in Counter-Strike history. Which is objectively true. They weren't beaten on LAN in over 2 years. It's just that people imply that it was intentionally meant so that people would say, really, Astralis were so much better though, and like here and there and there and there. Technically, Imperial FE were more dominant. So it's like that was the point. It created a lot of discussion. Most of it probably disagreeable. All engagement is good engagement. Like that was what I thought was so brilliant about that article, because they dropped it the day before. Immediately after that, they drop an interview with Anna, headlined that someday with a quote that someday a woman is going to play on a good men's team, and that's like perfect. That thing got like 100,000 views on Twitter, and probably a bunch of them actually read the article as well. Amazing. And then when you get to the actual broadcast, all of the talent members were really focused on because then if you got uncomfortable with this game, like if you were uncomfortable with casting or analyzing this game, you could have just pretended it was any other game, and you could have said, yeah, Navi were expected to win and they were doing really good, and yeah, it's a bit of a hit here and there. They really embraced the context of what this game was, and they focused a lot on what was positive about Imperial Fe's play. I think all of them basically said oh yeah, they were actually impressed with how Imperial played, which is fair. I think most people who were watching the game were. But they definitely did highlight oh, this round was really good, or they did this really good, and oh, winning this clutch, that's really good. And those things, it definitely amplified the show, that I think viewers were a lot more. Viewers have their own opinions, but to a large degree, if the caster says something, you're probably inclined to agree with it, if you don't have a strong opinion otherwise. So making that the narrative around the game, I think that was really positive. Giving Zaz a loser's interview. I don't think we had a loser's interview from many of the other teams at all, but giving Zaz an interview at the end where she was able to talk about what this game meant and how much they could what impact they think it could have, what are the issues they have. She specifically mentioned that it's very difficult for these teams to find practice against teams who actually play in the current meta, and obviously it's then difficult to yourself play in the current meta. So those are some of the challenges that they had, and all of this stuff really compounded into, wow, we had to crack a couple of eggs, which was Valve's ranking being completely shot, to be honest.
Yeah.
But we made a pretty damn good omelette out of those cracked eggs. The potential positive outcome that this game alone could have, the amount of viewers that could have seen this, the amount of discussion this generated on social media, the amount of exposure these girls had. We had the face cams and everything. The way so much sort of can become really good after this. The way some teams might realize, oh, actually, we didn't even realize this, but we could take a couple of scrims every week against the women's team. It's no problem with that. If there's an advanced team who end up saying that, or an ECL team who end up yeah, we could, if we're scrimming this much anyway, we could probably do that. All of this is so much positive, which long term, it could do so much for the women's scene that it's really, I think it's pretty much unmatched with any other single game in terms of how much good things can come out of this game. And I thought that was really impressive. You should go watch the game if you haven't seen it. It's actually there's a bunch of games where sometimes I feel it's fine to skip this. You can read this on the HLTV page. And I think you should go watch this game because it was really fun to watch. The VODs on YouTube and everything. If you haven't seen it.
Yeah, they do play some pretty well-coordinated Counter-Strike. They always have. Honestly, that was, when they were NGX under Vilga, it was all about how they took aggressive map control, completely choked out the other team with better util, better chemistry, all this other stuff. And then when it went wrong, Ana would just win 1v3 anyway. That was kind of the old school version. The new school, it's not quite as distinct. They have changed, moved on from Vilga as their IGL, but it's still the same core roster. I mean, I do find it funny because you can't really say they're the most dominant team in CS without an FE in front of it, because the open circuit is the open circuit. They don't play in it. It doesn't actually work.
Well, it is just that
it's not definitionally correct because they don't play the open CS circuit. So you can't call them the most dominant team in CS. They play the FE circuit.
Dominant would imply being good. That was never said. It's just that they had the most dominant streak in terms of straight LAN wins.
You can't call it just CS because it's not.
Well, no team has been undefeated on LAN. I would hazard a guess and say that absolutely no team at any tier of competition has ever had an unbeaten streak on LAN for 2 years.
No, but not everyone gets to play FECS. It's just different. It's just entirely different. So you have to add the caveat. So that's why it causes controversy, because it is straight up a lie. It is a lie. That's why people clicked and got mad, because it's a lie.
We are talking about it right now because it is such a technically correct thing. You're proving my point.
It's not technically correct, though. I've just told you it's technically wrong because they're not playing CS. They're playing FECS.
And we wouldn't have this discussion if Animo didn't phrase it like that. So
Yeah, no,
Perfect.
I'm not
Here we
saying
go.
otherwise, but he is just lying. People aren't unjustified in saying he's full of shit, because he's full of shit. That's not correct. It's just wrong. But no, I mean, yeah, they played against a Na'Vi team who quite obviously did not show up fully prepped and raring to go, and punished them for it. And that's good, because you could have honestly... It was also a very good pick, because you picked a team that doesn't have a superstar who's going to run out and just flat track bully the fuck out of you. They pick Spirit. This game does end 13-2, 13-2, because Donk doesn't give a shit. He will play deathmatch and just beat you. There's no one on Na'Vi currently who plays that well. Let's just put it that way. There's no one good enough on Na'Vi to do that to you. That's kind of their problem. So that was a very astute pick, all things considered. Not sure if that was truly planned, but that's how it looks to me.
They jokingly said that it was a coin flip between Navi and FaZe, and in hindsight, with how FaZe lost to Pain, I wonder if that would have been an even.
I don't know.
Do you see it? I don't
think so. They're a team who are naturally looser. They come into a game unprepared. They probably play better than Na'Vi did, especially early on, because Na'Vi, they do rely heavily on that structure, heavily on those calls.
If they picked FaZe, one of the maps would be 13-11, and that would be really funny for everybody who took the under on round counts.
Yeah,
everybody who bet the house on the under on the round count. That would have been so funny.
Was there an actual platform offering that on this game? Was there?
I think they did, but I didn't actually check, but I would assume so. I think every game has an over under on maps.
Because I'd assumed it was missed. This probably hit the over.
It definitely hit the over. I think what they would have done is to drag, they move the limit of it. The over under is a lower round count instead of what it regularly would be, 20.5 or whatever. Now they put it at 15 or whatever instead.
So it definitely hit the over. I mean, 15 would be ridiculous, but that's just free money. But yeah, they definitely hit it. So no, it was cool to see them get that sort of exposure. I mean, we do, but I also have to constantly just talk about, the women's scene. This team plays great Counter-Strike. They have good rivalries with this matchup. There's all this stuff we usually talk about that just gets missed.
Yeah.
As soon as people see women's CS versus men's CS, they just assume it's going to be a slaughter. And they're not wrong, but there's far more going on. Finally, this game showcased they're not just a bad Counter-Strike team. They play good CS. They just don't shoot as hard. And that's the big issue they have, really. They play better CS than most main and advanced teams in terms of the theory. But Counter-Strike's only 50% theory. There's 50% practically shooting someone in the head. And that's the part where it's not quite there yet.
And they did shoot harder than I think most people would have penned them to do it. Me included. I didn't think they would be winning 1v1s against JL, or I didn't think they would be winning 1v2s against Navi. In
the closer of the year couldn't close? Oh man.
No, yeah, the closer of the year couldn't close. No, but you had Wonderful had a 1v1 against Tori, which he lost, and then Kat won a 1v1 against JL, which she won. And then I think Kat also had 2 1v2s, and one of them was in a force buy round with a Deagle against a full buy on a retake on Mirage.
It's everyone's seen that clip at this point, surely. I think I've seen.
Yeah. And that's a super good round. That's a super good round. So I think people would have said, "Oh, they don't shoot as hard, and they'll probably only win clutches when they're given to them," which it did happen. I don't think Navi were throwing a couple of rounds. That's just entirely true. But they did also go head to head with one-on-one situations and absolutely win those. I just see a funny thing. Bit, he got 100% cast on one of the maps, and he was kind of nuclear on both maps. And I did see somebody. Do you know the thing with whoever the goalkeeper is? I can't remember if it's there was a German goalkeeper who was on a charity game where he was going to take 100 penalties against a bunch of kids, and for every penalty he didn't save, they would donate $1,000 to charity, and he saved every single penalty. I can't remember. It's not Neuer. It's somebody else, a German goalkeeper. But
is it more recent?
No, it's a couple of years ago, but somebody said that, that's what Bit was doing in this game, because he had 100% cast every single round.
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, it was brilliant for the exposure, and the fact that, as you said, quite importantly, they focused on things Imperial did well, rather than just dismissing the game offhand afterwards. I mean, they had no real choice, considering how much closer it was than probably every expectation. They kind of had to discuss why it was so close, but still, the fact that they focus on the fact they play quality CS, they don't just fucking shit the bed over and over again, and actually have an interview with Zaz where she explains a real problem that every coach in the FE scene probably has had to face, which is like, I'm organizing scrims for my team. Ladies, we're playing fucking nobody because nobody wants to play us.
Yeah, and like the teams you get, it's like intermediate teams who practice at best 1 day out of the week, and
and they
like,
don't play proper CS. They just
and
don't.
two of the teammates hate the others. Like it's like you don't get good teams. Like, and some people say like, oh, why would an intermediate team get to scrim, like, or a main team get to scrim against tier 1 teams? I don't think they should. I don't think in Navi. I think Navi are entirely reasonable not booking scrims with Imperial Fe. But then you also have stuff like, why aren't Navi Junior scrimming with like a team like Imperial Fe? It's like, because in the men's scene this happens. Like you see advanced teams scrimming against tier 1 teams. Like you see teams like Perry Vision and One Win are 100% scrimming against tier 1 teams. And you see the same at lower levels as well. Like people will book scrims even if some of them are just easy for them. Like some of them you just want to try against an easy opponent, and those games are super valuable to the other team who get to play better opposition. Like I remember like seeing intermediate teams playing scrims against like advanced teams just to get stomped like 28-2 in the scrim because you play. Well, now you would best play MR24, but anyway, and like. That's super valuable for the lower ranked team. It's just like because you get so much better by playing better opposition. But that just doesn't happen in the women's scene. Like Tohio, he used to coach NIP Impact for a year. He said that literally the biggest challenge was you couldn't get regular practice against better opposition. That's on his Twitter. That was the biggest challenge from coaching that team.
Yeah, every coach has said it. Every coach I've spoken to who's ever touched women's CS is just like, yep, can't get scrims though.
Yeah, it's an issue. Yeah, it's a huge problem. I would wonder, and I would ask somebody this: do young ninjas practice against NIP Impact? Because I feel like that would be a fine separation in terms of skill levels. Because I know young ninjas routinely practice against the main team, or I know they did in the past anyway. Like everybody's in the NIP office, and like they just have 2 different rooms and then a server, like play an offline game. But do they do the same with NIP Impact? Like, do they play scrims against them? I don't know.
Yeah, something for NIP management to answer because I haven't the foggiest.
Eric Vendel, DM me.
Yeah, sure. Another surprise member we've never heard of. But all right, let's talk about something else because that's an extensive segment on just one match of CS. Because that is all it was, unfortunately, for Imperial. G2 made it through to the LAN finals, although it wasn't for lack of, honestly, bed shitting. Let's be blunt about this. They won both their series 2-1. Firstly, against Bait. I was actually shocked to see Bait here because I hadn't paid enough attention to the lineup of these events. Because I've got one of those players currently in the works as a prospect, and I'm like, I really don't want them to win this because then everyone else is already going to be on the hype train. I'm going to get comments like, oh, why are you covering obvious players again? Like, shut up. But anyway, that one guy, I remember that one guy. I must smack you. Right. More importantly, they played weak CS. Essentially, 4 out of the 6 maps they've played, honestly, they've been bad, but they've won ugly. And it's sort of raising the question of, yes, they still have talent. We saw that. We saw the way they won the series. m0NESY first series, bonkers. Second series, m0NESY a bit, honestly, very flat, but huge from Malbs and Heavy God to get them through those. And it's just, how big was that Nico void, really? Not what wasn't he doing? It's more the question now rather than what was he doing. Because a lot of their opening ideas were very questionable. I saw a lot of tweets about that. Honestly, I missed both their games live. I had to watch them back afterwards, but I remember seeing tweets be like, yo, what are you talking about? And yes, they were just... Malbs is just running out. There's very poor support utility, if any. No real trades set up. What was Nico doing to make it all function? They seemed quite lost in a lot of ways. And yeah, losing a map in OT to Bait definitely wasn't on their agenda. Needing to go all 24 rounds on Dust 2. That game was close. I mean, at 11-11, it was literally anyone's game, and the best player on the server could have arguably been Hetrick with the way he was playing. So I was concerned for G2 because I had them coming into this year. Sure, you lose Nico, but come on, you've got Heavy God. You got a nominee for Coach of the Year. Like, how could you not be a much better Counter-Strike team than you are currently playing like? And I'm a little worried. So, Quack, how much of G2 did you watch? And also,
I saw.
Where'd you see them going off the back of this?
I saw all of Dust 2 yesterday, actually, and like there's one round in particular which stood out to me, which was so this was versus Big, and it was a third map.
Yeah.
There's one round in particular. It was the third round, I think, where Big take their first round, and it was I think it ended up being Big won a 2-on-4 because they Tabson and Crimbo had a neat little double swing into the mid hold there, but then they had a 2-on-2 retake on B side. It was Monesty and Heavy God. And they're coming in from CT spawn. They have a flash and an HE. And like they juggle the nades a bit while the bomb is going down. They allow Big to get into a good position. It's fine. It's B side and Dust 2. That's probably what you do. But then they wait a very long time for absolutely nothing. Heavy God just chucks an HE into a wall, which doesn't do anything. And then the flash comes in, and they don't swing off the flash. Heavy God then dies as he's trying to exit, and Monacy saves. And it was just like, that was so poorly coordinated. There was nothing in it to say that, like, oh, they'd actually even thought about how we're going to retake this side. It felt really puggy, and it felt like, well, you probably should have prepped something like that. And then they play kind of weird positions, like Snacks. A pattern I saw in a lot of G2 T side rounds is that Snacks is always the hard lurk and then he dies first. Like he'll go to long.
Lurk way too much, if my liking as well.
It's like a minute on the clock. He'll go out long and like try to sneak out long, dies alone, and then the other 4 players are in tunnels and they just start rushing B. That's what I felt like 4 of the T side rounds on G2 were like. And it's like, wow, that's so readable. Next game, as soon as Snacks dies, everybody's going to rotate to the other side. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah, the whole frustration I had during, I think it must have been Ancient or something else, is I'm watching an entry pack on G2, like taking a bomb site. This isn't just a map control fight with good util, advantageous timings. No, this is a pure and proper execute. This is where bitch entries come alive. Like, you're supposed to go in and die. And my pack is Malbs, then Heavy God, then Hunter, and Snacks is off fuck knows where. I'm like, this is what Hooksy did better than you.
Yeah.
Not even talking strategy, not even talking anything else. Hooksy was dying for his boys. His trading numbers, or traded death numbers, were so impressive. Just because that's what he could do. Like, he wasn't a great fragger, but he died for the cause. And the fact that Snacks isn't frustrates me. He's hard lurking far too often, trying to close rounds far too often. And sure, you describe that Heavy God Monacy clutch, and you're like, yeah, that's pretty awful. That's a new player who, on a new team, maybe the comms aren't perfect between them, that neither one wanted to be the one to force an idea out, and they just end up fucking it up. Yeah. That's fine. But Snacks being left alive in clutches, Snacks not doing things to set their team up properly, in my eyes, that's the frustration. That's the terrifying parts. If y'all let another stacked roster go to absolute piss under this leadership, sure, it's not quite the Nico level of loaded. That was inexcusable. The fact they won 3 whatever-ish events and then fizzled out. That's one level. This would be not quite as bad, but still be pretty egregious to not be competitive, not be elite, whilst having this much firepower.
They left mid on their seed side. They left Big to take mid basically every single round. They just didn't even fight it, and they had a really funny balance of like star power, I felt, because that meant the op was most of the time playing on the A side, where also Heavy God and Mobs were playing, and then you had Snacks and Hunter on the B side.
Snacks, Hunter, B side.
And there's another one which I thought was like, what the hell are you doing? Like, Monacy pushes alone with an op, like early round, into lower tunnels. Alone with the op. Nobody else is even close to mid. Like, there's nobody on short. There's nobody on mid doors. Everybody else is just like sitting around on the sides. And he dies. Like, mid gets completely smoked off, and then I think he gets 1 and then he's traded. And that's the op lost in lower tunnels, and now it's a 4-on-4. And, you have lost all mid control, you have no short control, you have no tunnels control. And, like, what are you doing?
The thing is, historically, their Dust 2 works because, A, they stack the talent towards A, but also B,
Mhm.
Hunter as a B player kind of works, and he'll have like massive pop off maps and big performances locking down that B site. But yeah, I get what you mean in terms of the entire approach, how they structure everything, and the ideas for rounds. There's a lot of layers missing, you know, like a lot of counterplay, a lot of adjustment, a lot of things missing. Like if you've got a solo AWPer in lower tunnels and you've not got, you know, proper mid control, a player up short, there needs to be a 2-man push into upper tunnels. Like that's kind of the counterplay usually, is that you're taking control of upper tunnels as well. You've got a good flashbang lined up to get them through the smoke that you've thrown pretty deep. All these things usually have to be set up for it to make sense to not have the mid side. But no, they do make pretty puggy decisions sometimes that do frustrate you a lot, and it just feels kind of wasted. So yeah, a lot of things to clean up. Really ugly. Still made the LAN finals. Yeah, but they're not going to go very far this year if they keep playing like this. It's going to be out talenting people in groups, and then getting picked off in playoffs over and over again.
I do think so. Yeah.
But yeah, we've got plenty to talk about with Blast because it is a pretty cool structured event. We've got a lot of teams we don't usually get to talk about. Pain make it through as one of the underdogs. I mean, as far as the underdogs go, you know, the 4 teams that go through in the end who are surprises, let's say, Bet, Boom, Eternal Fire, Pain, and Heroic. I think Pain for me the most shocking.
Yep.
Because they do just have now, it's a new team in that they've just signed Davideus in the place of Lux, which for a lot of people was very confusing. But so far, so good, really. I think good was he in the opening series. Like, what did he put up numbers wise? Yeah, okay, he did end up with good stats because that first series against Game Legion, I remember not being that convincing from Pain, but also being disappointed by Game Legion. You know, it was a bit of both. But then the fact they drew 2-0 phase and Davideus is by far the best player on the server in terms of just output. That was pretty impressive. Like Pain basically have just in 2 series justified what was a very controversial move. Bring in Davideus for Lux, because a lot of people were just like, Lux played good. Why'd you make this move at all? And I did say, when we talked about it, the ceiling of Davideus has always seemed pretty high. And a lot of people have that belief that he is like an elite rifler waiting to come through. Pain is certainly trying to help him make that case. Like, this is quite a good start. I don't know how much of the games you catched. I'm assuming you watched the Game Legion matchup because Rez was playing and you're still believing.
No, I can't remember what I was doing, but I was away for one reason or another. I did think that was going to be as close as it was, and I think Game Legion probably should have won it, but Pain came through, and I'm not overly disappointed by that.
Yeah, Big Uzira is a big dog when it comes to fragging IGLs, having big moments. And on Nuke, he was quite strong, like that's to put it bluntly. And there was no one really on Game Legion who able to just match up with him. Like between him taking initiative, taking big fights, Davideus fragging, obviously. There just wasn't enough to match up with on Game Legion. And I was rooting for PR more than anything. I'm really hoping PR could show off like a strong level. And he kind of wasted his best performance on a map no one else showed up for. Like he was able to find a lot of kills on Mirage, but that game wasn't close. So we needed more out of him on map 3. It just didn't happen. And Rez, not the worst start. I thought Inferno showed promise, but your time on NIP doesn't count. But what if you are the problem on NIP? Could we maybe have taken a little bit more to heart? The man who was always ever present through every problem. We'll see. It's one series. There's a lot of Counter-Strike to be played, although not at Blast Bounty for Gamer Legion anymore.
Yeah, it's no. We'll see. I don't think the weird thing about having this event is that we're judging a lot of teams on one game.
Yeah, we have to. That's all we have so far.
Yeah, we have to. That's all we have. So, but that ends up being a little bit weird. We'll see what happens with Game Legion. I think PR showed really good stuff. I think Rez, he had a couple of maps where, like, yeah, if he can sustain that, then Game Legion are properly dangerous. Like, he was pretty good on Inferno. He was pretty good on Mirage. Kind of fell off on Nuke. It's a combo I think could work long term. If he's coming in, like if PR hits his marks, then I think Rez is going to be just fine. But I didn't see the game. I didn't see if they looked. I didn't see if they looked dog shit or if they looked fine. I'm going off stats.
Yeah, no, it's well, honestly, they started off a classic Game of Legion performance. Map 1, win.
Yeah.
Map 2, disappointing firepower. Map 3, well prepped. Keep it close, but not enough.
Yep.
It's about as GL as it gets right now.
Mm.
Yeah, and of course the map they win. I just checked. It's like they did pick Inferno, right? Yep, they picked it. They pick Inferno. They win Inferno. It's just Game of Legion. That's just how it's been. Obviously, we can't really talk about Blast without also talking about Falcons.
Yeah. More or less exactly where I thought they were going to be, to be honest.
It's weird because losing to Eternal Fire probably makes sense, but it'd still be seen as a disappointment for them, especially with, if you watch the series, how flat Nico was. Because you're here for Nico to be a star, and on Nuke, I can't remember if it was, am I thinking of the right map? Yeah, maybe not. But Nico had moments. It's just overall just kind of trailed off his performance. And you got a lot out of Tessis. Like, Tessis was a monster the entire event, I feel like. What was their first series against Ents? Yeah, Tessis was a monster in that series. I really liked that series. Obviously, that was a great series out of Ents. Just showing up and showing off. Like, how good they actually are. Against an established core with some stars, they actually did play very well. But, no, for Nico, that second series, the one that gets them eliminated, really disappointing, not finding a stride. And so Falcons, yeah, I had them kind of power ranked around number 6 or 7. Definitely going to fall. You know, you had to be better than Eternal Fire to maintain that sort of position. They get 2-0, and Xantara is the best player on the server. Quite happy with where I put him in my rifle power rankings, because he's probably going to climb that as well. But yeah, it's a rough start for Falcons, who have ambitions of taking titles.
Yeah, it's a really good start for Tessis. Tessis had an excellent event.
He's a fragger.
Which I think, yeah, and I think that's probably good for him, like coming in as maybe not the guy to criticize, but definitely one of those guys who people might look at and say, oh, he's probably getting cut if there's a better option available. But he can hang, like he can hang for sure. So, but yeah, no, I think they ended up pretty much exactly where I thought they were going to be. I think Eternal Fire were a bit better than I thought. I expected Falcons to maybe have a bit more of a difficult opponent in the second game, but they had a difficult opponent. Eternal Fire were really, really damn good in this event. So, not
quite in the way I thought they'd be, though. Like,
no,
I thought we'd get more out of Jota to make them dangerous and frag, bring his fragging into the fray, and all of a sudden, G2's a beatable opponent. But actually ended up being major, weirdly enough, having really strong maps as a fragger, which you never expect. And of course, some classic Wicardia play to support Xantara's. But yeah, not a strong start for Jota, but hell, if he plays actual support roles and they just win off the back of the established stars, fuck it. Win's a win, but we did certainly expect a more involved Jota out of Eternal Fire, coming in from the Sangal roster where he was just kind of loosey-goosey. He was allowed to go make plays, do kind of whatever he wanted. Not exactly, but he did have a certain amount of freedom to go be a fragger, and that was a key part of Sangal, really. Here he comes in, doesn't show it straight away. The team still wins. We're not too worried, not too concerned just yet, but man, Xantara's wasted all those years. I'm going to be honest. Should be in the GOAT debate. Such a talent.
Yeah. But we're heading into Katowice for the next event. Falcons have an invite straight into the main event. They're in a group with G2, Vitality, and FaZe, which is maybe a bit more difficult from the other side.
What?
Yeah, I would expect them to make it at best to the lower final, but then they're probably getting knocked by FaZe, who inevitably will lose the first game regardless of the opponent. Close to playoffs, but not good enough. And I mean, Navi were close to playoffs in Katowice last year, and they made Team of the Year. So, we'll see. We'll see about Falcons. kind of want to talk about Heroic while we're on the topic of different teams. I think this was a really nice first showing for Heroic, and we kind of have to talk about my darling boy, youngster.
Jesus, don't say it like that. My darling boy, youngster. Oh my god.
No, they played super great. They played. I would say like all 4 of the teams who went through. I don't think any of them had a super easy bracket. Like, that's one of the good things about this format is that you do get these winnable upset potential games because, you know, the lower seed teams get to pick the team they're most comfortable with. But it also means that you can't just on very few occasions you can just game yourself into a game where you are the actual favorite. Like, I think that really only had that twice, and that was Big picking Saw and MIBR picking FlyQuest. And then MIBR still managed to lose that game anyway. So
well, I think Heroic picking 3D Max, Heroic picked themselves. Heroic were the lower ranked team, right?
Heroic were the lower ranked team, and then picked 3D Max.
I'd
probably still say
but yeah.
I did as well. I think 3D Max on merit probably could have been the advantage there. It was much more subjective, me picking Heroic as the favorite there. But yeah, they scraped through. That was a really good game. Tenier kind of showing what he's made of there. Then we head into the second game, and just like going up against Liquid, Tenier struggled. They still win basically off the back of Sunpias and Youngster. Like, that's sweet. And that was a really good game. It was really fun to watch. We're gonna see it again on LAN as the opening matchup of Katowice playing, that's gonna be really fun as well. No, but like I think Youngster here in that game. That's sort of the game which for me feels like everybody who was saying Youngster is only here for VRS, he's going to be cut after 10 games or whatever. That's really disproving that criticism.
Yeah.
Because he shows here that, like, yes, he is playing the tough spots, but he has the talent to step up when the big stars aren't really clicking. He has that talent to sort of be able to step up and put up a top frag performance, which is what he did against Twists and Nerds and NAF and JKS and Ultimate as well. But yeah, kind of the odd one out when you're talking about big names. Yeah, and then Linus, Xcloud, Tenier, all of them also put up a really good performance around that. Despite Tenier maybe not really hitting his marks, I think they still keep a pretty good floor across the whole event. That Liquid game is the one which is maybe the most important game. And yeah, into the next stage, they're not going to have Tenier. He has visa issues. It's really difficult to get into Denmark if you're Russian or Belarusian. It has been that way since the war. So they are going to be without Tenier. I expect we're going to see Madden here. I think that's the only reason he's on the sub bench. I'm not 100% sure. In any case, I don't see them going much further than the semifinal, unfortunately, and that would basically require Youngster to do this again, which he can do. Also requires quite a bit more. It requires Sunpias to do this again. It requires Xcloud to really be there because in the next game they're facing Spirit, G2, Navi, or Vitality, and that's more difficult than playing Liquid.
Yeah, that's going to be rough. They are. Yeah, so I locked in on this Heroic Liquid series. Like, I don't always have the time and freedom to watch a full 3-mapper, like start to finish, like I did this one. And actually, no, I didn't actually have time. I watched it on my phone. My girlfriend went to sleep, honestly. Just sat there on my phone watching the Counter-Strike. But yeah, the impressive thing, because Mirage, if you watched it, every single little thing Tenier tried went wrong. Even when it's something that's just as simple as boosting up on short, going for little aggressions, going for little set plays, nothing worked. Nothing worked. And he kept getting out-dueled by Nerds just straight up. Like, Nerds were just hitting shots. But thankfully, Liquid's map pool does not really line up very nicely when you're playing against Linus's Sangal core. Because they pick Anubis. This Sangal core played Anubis so well as a group. And guess who else played it fairly well on their previous team? Tenier. Tenier was actually pretty solid on Anubis whilst playing on Gun 5. I'm not really sure Sunpias we can really say anything relevant considering how long he was out of the game. But he's Sunpias. He's shown himself to be a fairly talented AWPer time and time again.
Did you see his crazy the wall bang he did on Ultimate on Anubis?
That was so sick.
I don't know if I said that to you. I talked to because I was in between maps. I was just talking to LNZ because he asked me about VRS stuff, and it like just after that conversation, they were playing Anubis, and I and I DM'd him and I sent the clip, and I was like, "Whose call was this? Like, whose call was this?" And he just said, "What the fuck? I thought it was a regular peak." Like, Sunbias just went there and did it, and then he just
Yeah, because he was looking for a canal's like sort of peak somewhere, and then he gets into the lineup position. I assume he must hear a. I thought he heard a scope. Ultimate had a rifle, so he didn't hear a scope.
Must have heard. I just guessed. It's a common enough.
Yeah, it's just a position. So he just takes a shot in the dark, I guess.
Yeah.
No, that was pretty awesome. But no, they end up bouncing back massively on Anubis. They actually just look like the better Anubis team. Everything you'd want an Anubis team to do, Heroic did. You know, they on CT side didn't get bullied into the bomb sites. You know, managed to find forward pushes and little aggressions to kind of rebalance things. Constantly poking and prodding, and obviously just had the better performing riflers. Youngster, especially, was really strong. Tnir, also a better map, just a much better map out of him compared to what we saw on Mirage. And then Ancient. I don't really get Liquid on Ancient. I'm going to be honest. I think Liquid are going to be really good at Mirage, just because it fits their ultra passive, nobody here really hard entries very well style. Because JKS, I've seen him try to be the hard entry / like super fast playing opener guy. It works like once or twice, but he's really not that player. And at Cave, he got abused after Heroic in the voice comms. I'm not sure who exactly said it, but someone was like, this is a T-sided map with JKS in Cave, specifically. And then they go and on several occasions, Linus is like just explicitly just swings and bangs him out again and again. I'm like, oh wow. Just chat shit, get banged. They actually talked about it and did it. It was it was kind of nuts. Man, what a performance on Ancient.
Yeah,
really impressive calls from Linus. This guy, fragging IGL, but calling a good game, fragging well at the same time. Not just doing both kind of well, doing both just at a high level. I've got, honestly, this week's power rankings will have IGLs. Watch out for Linus' spot because, man, he's impressed. I'm not sure he's got enough to work with to actually go deeper at the actual finals of this event, considering, the roster issues, but a great start to the year for him.
Also on Ancient, and to shout out LNZ, when they played 3D Max on that Ancient map, they were done. I think they were down 12-8 at one point to 3D Max. If they lose that, they lose the series 2-0, because 3D Max ended up winning the second map, which was us too. But the 3 rounds where Heroic took 12-9, 12-10, and 12-11, in all 3 of those, LNZ was getting multi-kill rounds from man disadvantages. All 3 of those back to back to back. That was him winning that map. They were at a man disadvantage at some point in all of those maps, and LNZ got at least 2 frags to swing that into a man advantage in all 3 of those rounds back to back. And then they close it with the final round, and then they go into OT and they win 16-14. And that was just like, he was single-handedly winning that game. that one ancient map,
Not good enough NIP.
No, there's no talent in Sweden. There's
just no talent in Sweden. It's so frustrating, isn't it? But right, let's. Any other team that really caught your eye, like that really you want to give some special attention to? I might just, whilst you think, just throw out Regali, or it's still Bird from Sky, the way he pronounced it with like Regali, like just sticks in my head, and it's just like every time I say Regali, I hear Regali in my head. But yeah, Regali, great debut series. FlyQuest upset MIBR. Regali, pretty solid performance. They then get absolutely obliterated by Spirit, which was kind of to be expected. Damn, Donk's 2.3 rating, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah.
But yeah, a nice showing in the first series they played of the year to win against MIBR. They were underdogs. Hey, I respect, again, I said it before, T-Time was one of the only people I saw disagree or disapprove of the move of Regali coming in on the basis of not pure talent, but of a bunch of other things. I'm not saying he's fully wrong. I'm just saying this is one map in the direction of, talent does matter. Talent will win you games.
Yeah, I'll say big because I'm specifically hyped. I'm not gonna say that he proved
Yeah,
me wrong.
you weren't that excited about hyped, but hyped. Well, he's made a lot
Yeah,
of people hyped. He's hit some not just good numbers. He's hit some fucking shots
yeah.
in these two
And
series.
I'm not gonna say he proved me wrong because they had Saw as the opening game and they
Yeah,
had
crushed Saw.
And I would say G2 if G2 lost that game, it would have been more against themselves more than against Big. But hype, he put up a good level in 4 out of 5 maps that they played.
Yeah, just that Dust 2. I was
yeah.
watching that Dust 2, seeing him whiff shots. I was like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Come on, bud.
Yeah. And that's that's really good. That's really good from him. I don't know if he can sustain it. We're heading into Katowice. My money would be on hype not sustaining it there. But if he can, then he might just be a serious regen who's doing it better. In which case, Big might actually be a more legitimate team than they were in the last year somehow, despite adding 2 players which are side grades at best. I feel like, but yeah, he's got to show something. He's got to show something extra. But this is a good start, if nothing else.
Yeah, it's kind of frustrating. So if you look at the series against G2, his overall rating, if you are a forum merchant, you'd be like, oh, he clearly didn't play very well. Ignoring the fact that the first 2 maps, he's just good. Like he's not getting out dueled. He's honestly holding his own, playing to the level you saw in the first map. The first series, sorry. Like he's just impressing. And yeah, the other part of that, I think, sort of impressive factor, the fact that Big were able to be so good. I think QB might be playing better than a lot of us expected. Because I haven't been able to watch a lot of QB recently. You know, he's not been on teams, but he was fairly strong on Sangel back in the day. If I'm remembering correctly, that roster, he was a very strong component of it, like closing. I just thought on this big roster, what's his role going to be? You know, how's he going to fit with Crimbo? I always thought they kind of played similar roles, or they thrived in similar situations at least. But yeah, they were able to win with him on the roster. He wasn't really doing much against Saw. Actually impressed me against G2 when, you know, they needed things to work out. Chips were down. You know, kind of how Youngster will step up when the stars didn't frag. QB kind of had a similar sort of performance against G2. You know, won more fights than you'd expect from kind of rough spots. I think they've made some astute signings here because Process, it just wasn't making sense. Rigon, he wasn't terrible, but it just didn't make sense again to have him on the roster, the way they were using him. So I think they've come out the back end of this, probably the best rifler of that trio for the team in terms of how smoothly it's fit together. And Hyped played well. So far, so good for Big. Maybe this was the year to predict they'd actually be not terrible in the Vegas general terms.
In the Vegas general terms, no, I don't think they sustain it, but it's a good start nonetheless.
Yeah, good start. We'll see where it goes. But all right, the final team I do want to talk about, because we won't get a chance to talk about them at the LAN finals, really, is BetBoom. You know, they are devastated by visa issues, which I think is a damn shame. But initially, coming out here, picking and beating Mouse, that's fairly impressive. That's good work. That's heavy work right there. Off the back, especially Axile popping off, not something we really expected to see. Zortine, honestly, placid in these 2 series, but man, Axile outstanding. Manoyez, absolutely fragging. And then finally, Boomich just calling really well. You have to say it. Boomich is a better IGL than we really probably expected, given, you know, the sort of the time he's been away, the way other projects have kind of fell short. He's been usurped. He's finally got full control of this team, and it's playing super well. Much better than it did under Nafany, who's going to be back for the LAN finals because of the visa issues, which is a damn shame. But BetBoom, 2 series won already this year. Beat a really legit opponent in Mouse in the opening game. I think they've got a really high ceiling, and we were right. We were right to be excited.
Yeah, for sure.
But all right, with that,
see much of them anyway. But
yeah, we probably won't see too much. But this sort of win against Mouse is going to get them a lot of rating. Like,
I did think it was kind of funny. Some people said, "Oh, Axel is good as soon as he has a good IGL," and then they're completely forgetting he played with Boomich for a year.
Yeah, they were already together. And he wasn't playing bad. Let's be real. He just wasn't the main star of that team. Is the difference. And he's not really supposed to be here, but he just popped the fuck off. Let's be real.
I wonder how he feels about the Nafany reunion. I think he can keep popping off. I think Nafany is still on aggregate the in-game leader, which Exile was best under.
Yeah, technically, yeah.
Which is technically.
I mean, Exile didn't play poorly on Cloud9. He just, wasn't Exile.
He just wasn't what he's supposed to be. So yeah. But they're also going in with no Opper, and they're going in with Chiron, Exile, and Mayonnaise, which feels like it's going to be a really funny role dynamic.
It's not going to work. They're going to enter with a very fuck it, we ball attitude, and it's
who do you think? Who do you think picks up the op? Do you think it's probably between those three? I would guess.
Manoyes.
Oh, I think Exile.
Just give it to most talented player.
Exile did a bunch of second hopping on the old Nafany led lineups, which would be a shame if he picked it up.
Nah, screw that. Manoyes. Just give it to the kid. Like these kids are good at everything, right? Just give it to him. Yeah. But let's go into the small site retake. Quirk, you're going to take us away with your far more interesting small site retake because it has been the talk of the town recently.
Yep.
What's wrong with you?
I'm going to hinge. This is basically hinging on or like springboarding off of what HLTV put out earlier this week, which is Have you read the article?
I didn't actually read it in depth. No,
you should
saw
read
what's
it in
going
depth.
on.
It is significantly longer and more comprehensive than I thought it was going to be. It's written by Lewis Mira. Big props to him. This is an incredibly deep dive. How Tier 2 CS descended into chaos in the game's new era. It is a significantly deeper cut than I thought it was going to be. And it is about CCT and Yala Compass and these tournaments in particular. Also talks a lot, like he's done interviews with Milky, the Polish player. Look, you're kind of a prospects guy.
No.
You know Milky. He's a fine player, right? He's a fine player.
Right.
He should be fine enough where like he could have a salary which he could live on Counter-Strike probably.
Yeah, I mean not like a king, but certainly not like a serf.
Tier 2 salary could live. Because of him being for seemingly no reason at all and no reason that CCT or Grid could give out. He has had to take a second job and he can't sustain himself at Counter-Strike anymore because he cannot play CCT. No team would sign him. A lot of teams look at him because of his talent. They then look it up with CCT and they say, oh no, he can't play CCT. And then they look for somebody else. That's a shame. And it's a story which has reiterated itself over so many different teams and players with the circuit. Most notably, Johnny Speeds. They had 5 players. Each of them could individually participate in CCT, but as a team, as a 5, they were too suspicious and they couldn't play, according to Grid and CCT. Which is strange, which is super strange. So that is what this deep dive is about. It basically highlights how CCT and Yala Compass have had misconduct, which has resulted in their events, currently running events, being unranked on Valve's own ranking in post, which makes them next to worthless for any team who wants to play there. And it hopefully means the end of this sort of misconduct, because as I understand it, CCT is commissioned by Grid, which is a database of betting statistics. They cooperate with a lot of different betting sites to bring together statistics. They would, in theory, be the authority on strange betting patterns which result in, which are indicative of match fixing and such. But they are very strange. They don't actually look for proper evidence. They just sort of decide that this team we cannot play because we ran them through our database and we consider them to be too suspicious. More so than actually finding like, this is a suspicious bet, indicative of match fixing, this is it. It's more just a general vibe, which means that players end up being shadow banned. And they've done that for this next for this ongoing session, despite being forced to invite based on VRS. The Valve ranking also says that you have to disclose the exact details of any suspension or any ban at the time of the decision. So if they have passed over, a team they've passed over, for example, is Rush B, previously home to Nota.
Yep.
And they made that decision when inviting. They have said nothing publicly about why Rush B were excluded. Some other teams, Navi Junior were excluded. Nexus, Eklot, Partisan, Zero Tenacity, Favbet, Apogee, Unity, Leo, and Rush B. They were all passed over, even though they had the ranking high enough to be invited for CCT. They were passed over for one reason or another. In North America, they did a really weird thing where they got special permission from Valve to invite Akimbo, which is a Mongolian flagging majority team, but they play entirely out of North America. So they technically wouldn't be eligible for an invite to the North American CCT, but Valve have several times made special exceptions for them since they are North American based and don't exactly have the funding to go travel in Asian events. So they were given special permission to invite those, and then seemingly use that same permission to invite another 8 teams who they just wanted to put in. And they've done these things for super weird reasons. But yeah, Yalla Compass as well. They have done seemingly what Yalla Compass have done is that they have invited teams in a weird order. Some teams were high enough rank where they were getting an invite to the main stage, but they were instead placed in the contender stage. Medisport, for example, pulled out of Yalla Compass for that exact reason, among other things. So both of those teams are now unranked, and what that means is that all of the tier 2 teams who are playing in these events are going to get no ranking points for those events. And some people are saying, well, maybe the ranking status gets reinstated. That's not going to happen because the problem is with invites. You can't change invites after the event has already started. So they're kind of screwed in that sense. And the team which is probably the most screwed is NIP, who accepted a wildcard invite to the CCT Series 16, which meant they were placed in the close qualifier because all wildcard invites are automatically put on the lowest seeding, regardless of where they should be. So they played in this close qualifier, and they need to play 10 ranked wins to get their roster actually ranked on the VRS. 10 ranked games. I don't know if I said wins. I've been confusing this all week.
Yeah, you said wins, but yeah, that's fine.
It's supposed to be games. They don't have to win them or lose them. They did that, and I mean they lost in the close qualifier. They lost to Cybershock, I believe, in the end, or Amkel perhaps. No, Cybershock. So it doesn't really matter in the end. But if they had continued playing, they are kind of running into a tight deadline to get those 10 games because they are on here on a wildcard invite, which is only enabled by Snappy and 2 other players having been top 8 in the past 12 months. Shush and Jax were both ranked top 8 on the Valve ranking in the fall season. Jax immediately after subbing in for Vitality in Singapore. He was technically listed on the ranking for a couple of weeks. But Snappy's last time on the top 8, as far as I can tell, is March 5th, 2024. So as of March 6th, NIP cannot receive wildcard invites anymore. So how are they going to get these 10 games? Well, there's another CCT season coming up. There's an IEM Dallas Open qualifier where the later runs of that are going to count as ranked games, I believe. But that's kind of a tight schedule, especially if they're going to be going out in closed qualifiers in these CCT events. So NIP might be screwed, and they are extra screwed. If everything was fine, they would have had 3 ranked games, 3 ranked games at this point, done and dusted. But CCT have kind of screwed up, and it's mostly to the detriment of NIP more than anybody else, I think. So that's something to think about. As far as I understand it, the next CCT season is going to be fine. The next Yalla Compass season is going to be fine. They've basically had a slap on the wrist from Valve, and they've said, this is how you have to do it. They're going to do it that way, and hopefully we have an end to this weird shadow ban system, which seems to be completely unmotivated. I would hope that if they keep using it, they make the details public, in which case we might have even further controversy because Valve might step in and say this is actually not a valid reason for a ban and you have to play with them anyway, in which case we have a second controversy, in which case tier 2 is just kind of screwed. But yeah, one of the other things that it means for us fans is that the top layer of the ranking is going to be pretty stagnant for the next month or so. Yeah. Because we just don't have tier 2 teams who can have the performance to go upwards.
Yeah, without CCT, what is tier 2 going to do? Like, really?
Yeah, it's European Pro League is going on. That's basically it.
Yeah, there's nothing there, and that's the frustration for NIP. Snappy, like, I know coming into this, wants to build back up, wants to show who he is. If he can't play ranked games through CCT, what can he do?
Yeah,
there's no way to actually make it up. But the problem is, you can't be like, oh, this is Valve's fault. Because realistically, this is on CCT. They have made this shitty bed, through grid, really. And now they are lying in it, having ruined their own events through their own absurd idea for integrity, they just fucked it up. Really, they just fucked it all up for everyone else. So, no, this is one of those situations where people are going to want to blame Valve. Do not blame Valve.
No, do not.
Do not. CCT have been on this bullshit for way too long, and finally, someone with enough, a big enough swinging member to come and make it a problem for them, has come and made it a problem for them. Unfortunately, it then becomes a problem for everyone else. But that was the only way we'd ever get around this kind of BS. So yeah, hopefully in future, we can potentially get back to some ranked CCT cups. Maybe there's some more cups that are going to come and fill the void and be like, hey, we can offer you ranking points. But no, currently it's just a shitty situation. And we don't really know how these teams are going to manage. It's going to be, I mean, honestly, it's cool that we saw a bunch of like tier 1.5 sort of teams play in Blast Bounty. And the ones who were able to get wins are going to be able to get better ranking off that and, access to more tournaments. But for a lot of teams, you need to make it to 1.5 before you make it to 1. And that's part of the reason why we have such an explicit 1.5, 2 sort of system, is because that's the way the grind works. You grind your way to being just on the fringes of invites, just getting in those invites sort of semi-regularly. You play the bigger tier 2 lands, and then you can try and build up into tier 1 and become a legit established roster. Yeah, tier 2 kind of fucked.
Yep.
Tier 3 never had a chance.
We also need more open qualifiers. Otherwise, entirely agnostic of this issue, Vision have absolutely nothing to play until the next open qualifier, which is for Dallas, I think. So, with their whole roster, because they are not eligible for wildcard invites. The rumored Sangel rebuild is not eligible for that either. So yeah, it's a whole mess. CCT put themselves in this situation. I think they're a bit scummy. There is one instance which M&M's, the absolute North American expert, he posted about this as well a couple of months ago, which was during one of last year's CCT North American seasons. They invited a team consisting of 5 relatively unknown Eastern European players. And the assumption was, these guys have probably moved to North America. I think one of them wasn't unknown, and it was Jemka, I think, the old Russian player. Or maybe that was an entirely different team. But they invited them to CCT in North America, seemingly very weird. No record of playing in North America. And when they actually ended up playing, they had over 100 ping in all of the games. So they weren't even playing from North America.
Yeah.
And they were super strange. Nobody had ever heard of them. And look, I'm not saying anything concretely, but it looks like these guys were just invited because they know somebody. Like, it looks like they were just invited because they, somebody thought they should be here. Maybe, they were invited so they could play games to fix. That's what it looks like. And then it's kind of like, that's obviously with the cooperation of CCT in that case. So even if some people have said this shadow ban system, in theory, it could be a good thing because it means we can remove suspicious teams which are probably doing something, probably fixing, probably cheating, whatever, but we don't have concrete evidence for it, so we can't legally justify it. If that was the case, that's fine, but it's obviously been overused, where random players seemingly get completely arbitrary bans.
It's also not outright fine, let's be real.
No, it isn't fine. It's
ever
like,
to just ban people on no evidence. We do have an evidentiary standard to uphold within society, just as a general rule, rather than just going, you know what, that's kind of sus, which is essentially what the thing is. As you said, they don't ever back up these shadow bans. They don't make them openly. They don't say why they're making certain teams unable to play. It is quite literally a behind-the-scenes algorithm that goes, you know what, this is too varied. They when we assign them too big of an underdog status, they won. When we assign them too big of a favorite status, they lost. Therefore, definitely cheating. That's essentially what we've come down to, and it's Twitch chat level bullshit. I'm sorry.
It is Twitch level.
There's no algorithm you're writing of these teams, these mixed teams, randomly like playing 2 games maybe, that you've decided they're now match mixing. It's silly.
Some inside source on CCT spoke to HLTV in the article. You should read the article. Like, sorry,
I've been trying to whilst you talk, but I also need to listen.
Side note: I get so pissed when people on Reddit comment like, just briefly summarize the details of an article and then wrote, for people who are too lazy to click on articles. Just click on the article if you want to support the writers and if you want to support the site. They need the clicks. Anyway, You should read it. There's a source there from CCT who speaks to HLTV, and they say that one of the reasons they don't tell the teams themselves even why they're banned is because of legal reasons. They want to avoid legal action being taken against
that's
them.
obvious. There's a clause under the rule which they use to ban people that just says we can arbitrarily do whatever the fuck we want, and that's always the cop out. That's always the way to do it. It's like you add a clause that just says we also, to our discretion, can do whatever the fuck we want. Yeah. And then you can just arbitrarily use that rule, just spam it. Just yep.
And like, as much as a lot of people know about this bullshit from CCT and have done for a couple of years, there is also the fact that it's not even just CCT. A lot of events bar some teams based on the fact that they are already barred by CCT. Like, in absence of other evidence, they say, oh, there must be something wrong with them, so we won't invite them to whatever. Anyway, looks like that's changing. A lot of the teams HLTV spoke to, which were passed over for this CCT season, have since received invites for the next one. So that's, I'm not going to say fine. It's hopefully an improvement.
Yeah,
we're gonna see. The next CCT thing, I think, is in. It starts this week, I think, or something like that. It's yeah, I think it's like at the end of January the next CCT season starts, because they do this weird thing where like Series 16 overlaps with the close qualifier for Series 17. It's a whole thing.
It kind of makes sense, because typically it should work out fine. But if it doesn't, oh well, you did really well. Here's some prize money.
Yeah. So hopefully hopefully it works out. We might see another wave of bullshit. In which case you will know about it on this show.
Yes. When it comes to tier 2 bullshit, we're the guys to come to. No one else talks about tier 2 bullshit quite as much as we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lord, considering we dedicated, 20 minutes of the video to women's CS, 20 minutes of the video almost to this. And my small site retake, which we're now going to switch over to, is far less important. But it's basically a shout out to Note for correcting himself on the article with the interview with Apex, and also to offer an olive branch of yes, that is exactly the thing that Apex's thick-ass French accent would pronounce in a way that is almost unintelligible and cause you to make bold assumptions. Because that Spinks has been, as Spinks, it's all in that sort of range where the French struggle with the English sounds. I would know. I'm related to literally dozens of them. French people, that is. So, yeah. I want to just say, yes, Apex still has a fairly convincingly strong French accent. He hasn't quite managed to truly eradicate any trace of it, like I have. Considering I never had one, it was pretty easy. But it's one of those things where, yeah, fair enough. Issue the correction. It was an amusing quote to see pop up. Think, oh, what is that supposed to mean? Are we not doing a ROP support thing? Are we screwing flames? What's going on? And the correction still doesn't really clear up that exactly, but it at least takes some of the ambiguity out of it. And yeah, I get it. He does have a very, very heavy French accent, and those are the exact sort of sounds that are going to get confused sometimes if you're listening in.
Yep. So this was in reference of the interview which had to be corrected because of a misheard quote about the original headline was that ROPS didn't have some positions or some freedoms on phase, which he was now going to have on Vitality. That was the initial headline. It was since corrected after Kerrigan and Apex got into like a slight bit of a scrap on Twitter. Like a little bit of a Kerrigan was like, why did you say this, Apex? And he was like, I didn't say this. But then they corrected it too with the actual quote, which was, he meant Spinks had these positions. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah, then had Spinks rather than has been. Like, was the fucking confusion, I think, or something like that.
Something like that.
It's understandable. So yeah, that's just like a little olive branch from the official undercover Frenchman of the scene. We get it. It's cool. We're all good. But that was my small site retake, because I honestly, the big stories we covered. So I was just like, you know what, let's cover a little detail, a little thing on the edge, on the fringe of relevancy itself. Finally, a short segment. Look at me doing my job, keeping the show moving. Speaking of the Eternal Shuffle, we can never seem to escape it. And speaking of tier 2 bullshit, My
This
God.
is in an arbitrary order in the order I found them, not
Yeah, and it's
necessarily.
still just all tier 2 bullshit, really.
Yeah.
We start with Copenhagen Wolves signing Jaquinho and Bielani. This is mid. Yeah, I don't really like this. To be honest, yeah, no, I hope you have more positive / generally things to say about this, but I'm not a big fan of this at all.
I'm more so not a big fan of Jaquinho. He left Medisport for basically burnout reasons. He took some time off, pugged a bit with Little Mix just to, have something to do and get some playtime in. And then like Copenhagen Wolves is the offer he takes, which is just a tier 2 slog with revolving doors.
Oh yeah, they sit more almost on the tier 3 level, but he's just pure AWPing now, right? They still have Tupperware calling.
I think so.
So
I have no
idea. At
least
he's taken that out of his own hands.
Yeah, it's a Bielani. I don't know. I've seen him around. I've never really thought about him. But for Jaquinho, I not commenting on the level he can actually play with. I am just a bit wondering why did he pick this team out of all teams. They're live right now. They're playing against ENS Academy, and it's going so and so.
They're on map 3 versus an academy team. That's just what it is.
In the grand final of United 21. So there are there's $6,000 on the line. No, it's not. What I've heard is they pay their prize money in crypto, so I'm not sure why you would even want that prize money. So fine enough move. Do you want to give it a rating? Do you want to do the rating this time?
Yeah, let me grade this shit.
I love this shit.
I'm gonna grade it firstly from Copenhagen Wolves perspective. I just checked; they have played quite a few games with this team, and it's not gone terribly. So I can give it a kind of retroactive grade on that. But then I'm like, it doesn't move the needle for me going up tiers or anything. So I'll give it a B. Like just a B is fine. Oh look, it's not gone terribly. Like they've replaced Magilla and Ira basically with these two. It's not exactly like it's not Titans being replaced by mice. It's small cats being replaced by different breeds of cats. Like it's similar levels of player overall. And yeah, I'm gonna give this actually just for Jaquinho an A. It's like you've escaped Sweden. No one's trying to make you an AWP IGL anymore. Even if that was your idea, I blame Sweden. So now you're just back to AWPing, which you've never done fantastically at like a tier 1 level. When we saw all that briefly, but at least you're going back to honing the skills you should be honing. I'll give him an A for that. Bielani, I have no comment, but I guess it's better than constantly being rotated through Polish teams. So maybe you deserve a B+ / A as well. So no, overall, it's not that bad. It's when you look at the names, you're like, oh, Copenhagen Wolves made moves.
Yeah.
Harry Vision confirmed the removal of Art Frost to let James come in, and they also add Travis and Nota. Both come from Amcal, I believe.
I think they do, yeah.
So
it's
this is a fucking roster. I'm gonna be honest. I had Paravision right on the bottom of my tier list as a team who, they're not good, but they at least are worth talking about this year. Just on the assumption they'd make moves, not exactly these moves, but similar to this, with James coming in as IGL he doesn't end up actually IGLing, but whatever. Under Dastan, Kicker apparently ends up being the caller, which is actually something that happened back in the day when they were a Vanguard every now and then. It wasn't a pure IGL James thing. Like they also did occasionally have moments when Kicker would call. And I think even at one point they tried Buster, but don't need to talk about that. But Travis comes in, Nota. I mean, Travis, very whatever. But if they're playing a system to try and optimize and maximize Nota, who is still 17 and still probably one of the better Russian prospects who doesn't get overhyped at all. He just gets some attention from me. I think this team could be really, really dangerous. I don't know what you think about it. If you're a big believer in the Dastan, James, Kicker reuniting, I think it could fuck. I think that could be interesting. And they could be one of the more interesting teams to watch as they bring back the old style, but at a tier 2 level.
Yeah, it's a really good team. I'm very much confounded by the fact that Kickert is still calling. Which honestly, for me, that really puts a damper on the fact they cut Art Frost for this, because then they're cutting Art Frost solely for James Ob talent, which feels strange. Like, it's James is good. I'm not sure he's a hard upgrade on Art Frost, and you would have kept your ranking core if you didn't make this move.
Yeah.
So you
surely eventually they transition over to James calling though, or surely he's already like half calling. That would make sense, you know. So I didn't factor in the idea of the ranking being lost, because if they lose their ranking doing that, then it has to be not just James fragging, because James as an AWPer, I mean, he's not bad, but now is not the time to buy the stock, is all I'm saying.
No, yeah, it would have been the time to buy Art Frost stock. I think they've let a very talented player go. So, and they've done it to get James in. I don't know. I think that's the weird part of it, especially with the VRS component to it. It does feel a bit strange. That might also be something which changes, dynamically behind the scene. Maybe the idea is like James as some sort of a second caller is better than Kickert. Maybe that's the dynamic they had on VP. We don't really know about that. Like maybe it was James was obviously always the main caller on VP, but maybe it was the fact that Kickert and James cooperated quite a bit together with Dastan. We don't know how things like this
look. Kickert was fairly vocal. If I'm I'm trying to force my brain back to conjure up pictures of the face cams and all that stuff, and I am remembering a fairly vocal Kickert.
Yeah, so maybe this is something they've done before and they want to do properly once more. I don't know. It just feels, on the face of it, it does look strange, because especially with the VRS component to it, you could have made this. You could have played a couple of games with this roster and then done this move and kept your ranking if you really wanted to. But it's a very good move. Otherwise, it's a very good roster. I rate Travis. I definitely rate Nota. Jamie is good. It's just a bit of a shame for Art Frost.
Yeah, it is. But it does mean he has opportunity, surely. Go learn English and then go replace someone on some team somewhere. Like, he's not a bad player. Or find if there's a spot available in the Russian scene. I mean, I expect Molodoy's buyout to be bought anytime soon, but whatever. That's a topic for later. Are we grading this? Am I grading this as well?
You can grade it. I like the grading system, but you can do it this time.
All right, I'll let you take over the whole announcing the moves then, so I can sit there quietly and then go, my grade for XYZ. I'm going to give this, for Parivision, it feels like a bit of a blunder to lose your ranking like this, but I see the vision. So I'm going to give them a C. I'm not entirely sure losing my ranking over signing Travis is entirely necessary. I mean, I fuck with the Nota part of this. That's what makes it a C overall. But hopefully they're fun. If they are a fun team to watch, I might have to retroactively move it way up. Like, if they play a different style, they're like more unique. They're the classic James Dastan type playstyle. But for now, just to see, because like you kind of screwed yourself, and not all these moves exactly blow my mind.
Yeah. 9 have cut Refresh, and they have brought in Kragan. Just a side note, this is the second time Barry has benched Refresh. But yeah, they made that move. It's the third move they're making after bringing in Bob XD and Faven, so rate it.
Yeah. I'm not a big Kragan guy. He's one of those players that, I'm endlessly told, historically, not so much anymore because I was right, was like, oh, next guy up, Kragan, next guy up, Cabby, next guy up, all these Danish riflers who are just not that impressive. He was a part of that list. The problem is, Refresh just wasn't it anymore. Like, initially when 9 comes to tier 2, or Refresh comes to tier 2, he's able to kind of smurf. Like, he was a better all-round player than a lot of tier 2 players when he took the step down. More recently, really wasn't the case. Yeah, this might be a slight upgrade. I don't think it's the worst move ever. Kragan's going to play fundamentally sound CS. Barry probably likes that about him. Thinks he's probably got more potential as a fragger. Probably a B, just because it doesn't blow my mind in terms of, oh, you brought in Kragan? I guess it's better. but it's not like, holy shit, you brought in XYZ, because it's not going to be that guy. But overall, yeah, 9's still just in a weird spot for now.
Yeah. Right. NRG have cut Breezy and they have signed Bro.
Anytime you can get away from a North American and sign a European, immediate plus 99,999 aura points. NRG, because Breezy wasn't really a big factor, I think, for me on NRG in terms of what won them games. Like, I'm thinking more about Hexed. I'm thinking more about, what's his name? Now George, but OC as well, especially. So bringing in Bro to be more of a role player over Breezy, you know, I rate it. I rate it quite highly. Give Bro a fresh start as well. Go to America. You know, use your funny accent on all those American ladies. I'm sure you'll do very well. Hopefully you're tall. Have fun. Get at it, young fella. Use that NRG money wisely. So yeah. No, I mean, good for him. After being dicked around so much in Europe, A+ for everyone involved, except Breezy. I mean, I guess you have to start again in NA. It's a shame, but it just wasn't working that well on an RG for you specifically, and I like the idea. This move I rate.
It's a bit weird. Before Automatic left, they only played 24 maps since then with George. But Breezy was 117 in almost 100 maps, which was second best on his team. So I'm wondering if this is like a doubly thing where like Breezy was fine. Like, yeah, I just want to retire. Like, I just want out of here.
Maybe.
Maybe, but it's a very good, like, if you were gonna make a cut, Breezy is a fair cut to make. He's not really one of those, like, compared to Hext and George, he's not a future kind of guy. No. He's not somebody to bank on. Bro is very good. Bro definitely had interest with it from a lot of different teams, and I think NRG is a really nice landing spot for him. So with how much easier it is to qualify for various things in North America compared to Europe as well, that's a really nice opportunity for Bro to break back into a tier 1 conversation.
Yeah.
And he can also farm in North America. So yeah, it's a very nice move. Very nice move.
Yeah, for him it's good. Yeah, I think Breezy really, to justify being on the team, they had to win more and he had to frag more. Like, yeah, it's kind of weird. But they had to win the big games against the teams like Wildcard, like M80. And they weren't able to, so they had to make an upgrade. And I think that's reasonable to make it there.
Yeah, absolutely. NIP confirmed the rumored roster. Jax is standing in for wildcard reasons. We already touched on this briefly, why he's here. But
yes.
How do you rate this NIP roster?
Well, firstly, obviously, they are snappy at IGL. Dub. Shush as a support player. Dub. Wrinkle as an AWPer is at least fun. As much as he has been disappointing of late, he is still fun. And I can't say anything against that. Yeah, they lost to Cybershock, which is a bit frustrating, but it's tier 2 CS, you know?
Yeah.
This kind of shit happens, especially when you're not overwhelming teams with insane firepower. No offense, you jerks. He's just not that crazy of a good rifler to just dominate, like, sort of be a flat track bully in this case. Like, these guys are going to be sharp, the ones you're playing against. And they have been able to out-aim you in a series, finally. Like, sure, you got past Amcal, you got past Endpoint. This was one step, again, where you had to be on it, you had to be really on it, and you jerks especially just wasn't able to frag at the level they needed him to. But overall, look, Adosdosh, when he comes back, once they have the ranking points secured, they want to set him up as a star. I think they're good enough. I mean, I don't know. It's difficult to build out of nothing. And that's essentially what NLP have done again. And overall, I think they've created a fairly balanced roster with a strong IGL. And Exist is a decent coach. I mean, I don't get crazy excited when I see Exist attached to a project, but that's because, to be honest, most of it's been NIP recently. And it's hard to get excited over NIP. But I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I'll say this is a strong B. I've not got enough top-end talent to be excited about, but I've got the right IGL to make it work. So, long-term, it could still be very successful.
Yeah.
Relative to where they're starting. Because they are starting quite far down.
Yeah. Losing to Cybershock, obviously you have Jax on this team. as the worst.
Yeah, but he's not meant to be the guy carrying you through these games, is he? It's supposed to be Ujux and Wrinkle, really. The two guys you look to crush tier 2 competition.
Yeah, I mean, but you did have Wrinkle and Shush up on a 120-something rating across the series, and Jax is down at a 0.92, and you lose over 3 maps.
Yeah, again, my support player, 0.92. I'm not going to cry about it. The fact that Ujux, who I rely on to take a lot of big opening fights, being at a 1.04 with only 2 more kills than Jax is a bit more of a problem. Like, rating may disguise it. My eyes still see it. He needs to kill more people. Like, just flat out.
Ujux is the guy I have a little bit of a problem with on this roster, because Arasdoch, he has the talent. He's a good player, and you can turn him into something really good. Wrinkle as well has shown good stuff, which, you know, at least there's the hope that you can bring that out of him more consistently. And then Shush and Snappy are, as you say, dubs. Like, compared to what you had, that's definitely a dub. But then Ujux is here, and I'm just wondering if maybe it would have been more worthwhile to have. I mean, obviously, I think they wanted. This is pure speculation, but I think they wanted Spinks, and he just said no.
Yeah, but you don't want Spinks for Ujux roles.
No,
they're not the same player.
No. But I think they wanted Spinks because he was tied to Snappy and Shush when this project was supposed to be heroic. In which case, they wouldn't have needed snacks. It would have been so much better. NIP for sure wanted Spinks. And then it's just, could you have done better? Like, I still think maybe there's a better player out there which you could have had instead of Ujux, but maybe there's a chemistry benefit there with Aristotle. Maybe there's something else, and maybe, I don't know. I see when people talk about this team, I see a lot of people saying that, like, this is fine and dandy, and I see, like, the development potential in everybody except Ujux, because he just didn't show that stuff before on Sol.
I mean, look, the big games they won at big events, as saw, Ujux fucked people up at the top level. Let's be blunt. He was performant in the big games, like the FaZe game at Cologne. Look who's topping the scoreboard. It's Ujux. Like, Ujux has the ceiling. He isn't. I wouldn't have this expectation and say this is a massive performance if he was a dogshit player. He's not. He's just clearly not performed well enough in these, obviously, 3 series if you go across all 3, but especially that final one when they end up losing. He's not been a part of the solution. He's been just kind of underwhelming the entire time. So I do think I'm right to expect more from Ujux, and it's going to be key for them that he keeps fragging. He keeps on actually performing. And he hasn't so far. They need Saw Ujux. So far they've got, I don't know, Rhino Ujux. I'm trying to make an analogy for a worse Rhino, a worse Portuguese team, but like, he never played there, I don't think. But no, it's it's a weird project in terms of, you know, 2 Portuguese players, 2 Danes, and a Ukrainian. Like, it's just a weird mishmash of technically Europe, but very different Europes. Even if Portuguese does sometimes sound like an Eastern European language, it doesn't really work like that. And yeah, so far kind of a disappointing start, but I do have to give them a B. I do think overall it's going to work. It just may take far too long for everyone's liking.
Yeah. He did play for Rhino, but the team you're thinking about is For the Win, FTW, which was such a nothing team. I almost hated them just because I didn't think they were anywhere, like, they never did anything. But yeah, Ujux, Story, and Aristotle all came from.
Yeah, I just meant that he just played worse than he should have.
Yeah, no, sorry, I just wanted to I had to look it up myself.
He did actually play for Rhino, damn, okay.
He did. Yeah,
Ignore everything I said. I'm not a Portuguese team expert.
Story, and eventually Aristotle were recruited to Saw from FTW, which was, I think, FTW. They did something which was like, so they qualified for Pro League. Then the majority of their team got stolen. Yeah.
And so they end up at Pro League with just a shit team because their good players were taken.
Yeah. So I think I can't remember if they did anything. Like, I can't remember if maybe they took like one map off of somebody else at that event or something like that. It was some bullshit. But it's a whole thing. Anyway, nice. Partizan confirm Vladen addition to make a full Serbian team.
Was that you replacing Roga then?
I would assume so.
Yeah, because Roga's a Croat, so yeah.
Roga was on here. I thought it was banned from pretty much everything. Right?
I rate Vladen still as a role player. He's obviously didn't need him to come in as a star. I don't think really. I mean, he's going to play. This is a tier 2/3 team. He's going to play easier opponents than he used to, so he will put up some good numbers. This team primarily is it's Dragon and Collins in terms of the big fraggers. He's just going to have to fill in as a third star. I think there's a perfect spot for him. Also, yes, full Serbian team now, so racism wins, I guess. Shout out Launders. But yeah, who'd have thought it? 2025 shouting out racism in the Balkans, but no. Yeah, I think it's probably just a strong A. Like, there's not many places Partizan can go in terms of keeping it within the same sort of language sphere, and also be able to afford the players. So yeah, this is a good move for them. For him, it's probably more of a C, because I think he probably, maybe there are some better projects he could end up playing on in terms of high-end potential. But you never know. They have guys like Dragon and Collins aren't bad players. They're not terrible. I don't think they're like tier 1 stars, but they could definitely like try and push for a tier 1.5, tier 2 type level. Make a reasonable go of it as a core.
Yeah, who's taking over the AWP? Is it Dragon?
Because
Roga was AWPing before, and I think Dragon
isn't. Yeah, shit. I just realized you're right. I was just looking at it. I was like, you're not an AWPer. You're not an AWPer.
I think Dragon did it before.
I mean, Kindo has a lot of sniping recently.
Roga had 92 on Partizan for this stint.
Yeah, but the last 3 months, Kindo is 31. So it might be him. Wait, no, he doesn't. The profile's lying to me.
Yeah, it is.
The profile's lying to me. When you go to his actual profile past 3 months, it shows 31 sniper profile. So I was like, oh, maybe he's sniping. But in the complete stats section, it doesn't.
He played a bunch of maps for the Serbian national team. And
I see. That's where he's got it from. And he was.
But that is literally just Partizan, but they had Choiv 7 instead of Roga, so I'm assuming.
Yes. So yeah, no, I think it will be Kind who's going to take over the AWP. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Has he been an AWP before?
I don't know. I always thought Dragon was the guy who could have been who was the AWPer before.
Yeah, I don't remember kind of being an AWPer, and I'm right. I'm not finding any sort of hint towards that, but no. Yeah, I guess in that sense, it'll be weird.
Yeah.
I didn't actually spot that. You're right.
Yeah, no, I think Vladen could have done quite a bit better than Partizan. But it's a fine destination to land on. Partizan actually, they're not.
They're currently 37th on Valve ranking. Like, they're not doing bad.
They're perfectly fine. So they're. I'm not sure what those results come from. ME is here as well, and like people have varying ratings of how good ME is. But if nothing else, he has experience at a higher level of play than they're at right now. So. It's definitely something. I'm assuming they have some backing stuff. Anyway, nice. Alliance have added Era, and I know you're not a big guy on Era, but in this frame of reference, you're comparing him to Bowden Master, who I think you're even less hyped on.
Essentially, yeah. Bowden Master was. I mean, there's an endless number of Swedish AWPers who I'm always like, oh, this guy's actually kind of good. And I watch a game like, you crazy? Like, no, he's not. You're like actually just coping so hard because your scene can't seem to generate a single AWPer of any real value. It's just riflers. Some pretty good riflers, IGLs, support players, everything but AWPers. Pure cope otherwise. But no, I mean, yeah, I think it's a marginal upgrade. Maybe slightly better than marginal, actually. I think it's a solid upgrade. The problem is it's still Alliance. Overall, the team still doesn't make sense. They are getting banged out by 15-year-olds. So, not a bad move. I'll probably give it... Honestly, I have to just say, they have cut a player, improved. I can't give it like less than a B. Like, if the move, I think in my eyes, just improves the team, it's got to be a B. It doesn't make them crazy good. And again, they still get beaten by children. But, step in the right direction for Alliance. Yeah,
the criticism I think Alliance often had across their roster, their history of existing. They've only made 2 player moves ever. But what they've done, most of them have been, they've been lacking firepower, essentially, where they always had, I felt like they always had players who were rated between 0.98 and 1.04 across the year, like all 5 of them. And there was nobody who really stood out. And I don't know if it's directly related to it, but after Robin was replaced, Avid actually started playing really well. Twist was able to play really well, despite, being a caller. I'm assuming he prioritizes himself slightly in that sense, but he was able to step up a notch as well while being the caller. And Era is a firepower upgrade over Bodemaster.
Yeah.
He plays a very aggressive, much more aggressive style. He plays a style which and he just has that ability to take over some maps. And look, this is domestic play, it's online play, it's versus two teams who don't practice. But the two games he played on HLTV versus Lil Mix and Johnny Speeds in Superior League, Era was basically winning the maps, I would say. In the Lil Mix series, he was the best player. And since I was watching these games, I was covering these games since I work for the tournament organizer. He was really good. He had a bunch of highlights. He had a bunch of really good maps where it's like, oh shit, they just wow, he really sort of overtook that round. Then he had some other ones where he was completely, making a mess, where he would take a peek and just die. Yeah. And the one map they win in the final as well, Inferno, he was the guy. He was the guy taking it. So in that sense, it's an upgrade for Alliance. Like you say, it's a marginal upgrade. It's a step in the right direction. How much it unlocks out of Alliance is kind of hard to predict. This could be a huge step. This could be a super big step if there's some chemistry reason for it or whatever. But on the face of it, I think it's a fine enough move. Yeah. Right, 9Z have added Lucan, and I'm forgetting who is replacing because it was so long ago. I think it was pre-major since they missed the RMR. It's for Buddha. So Lucan for Buddha.
Oh, right, yeah. Oh, yeah. Let me look at this 9Z roster and just get my thoughts straight.
Lucan is 27.
Yeah.
And
he was on 9Z before, yeah. I think
this is
right guy.
Third stint, actually, with 9Z.
Yeah, I mean, he typically frags fine when he's on the roster. It's just not the problem they have, really. They have fraggers.
Yep.
I don't know. I think they needed a proper shake-up. Maybe splitting up Max and DGT is just going to have to be the play at some point. I think to move them up really in the world in terms of their ceiling. Because they got embarrassed at the America's RMR. Just losing 3 series straight 2-0. That was shocking. So yeah, I'm D. Yeah. This is not the move that they need. This is just a move. Agree. It's just a move, right? It's just like, oh, we need a player. He's played with us twice. He doesn't frag poorly. Let's just try that. I think this is a D.
For a team who made top 4 at a tier 1 LAN last year and who played a significant amount of time from Europe, really banking hard on prepping really hard and hoping for success. This is sort of an underwhelming move to me as well. And look, without taking consideration to roles, I'm just going to say that Davideus also moved in the same shuffle. I get that Pain is a much more attractive spot, but if 9Z really wanted to make a convincing roster move, and Davideus was moving anyway, and you were going for an ex-player who you'd previously had on your team, Davideus probably surely that wasn't impossible. So
Davideus, I think, is a harder player to sign though.
Oh, for sure.
No one wants Lucan. Everyone wants Davideus. Not no one. That's a bit harsh, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah, I do know. Yeah,
relative.
There's a bunch of other teams. We had Legacy making moves. We had Bestia have Tomashin, which
this guy's a beast.
Guy's a beast. Yeah,
must be in contract hell though, because it's South America.
He must be. I have this.
Fnatic are playing. I'm sorry, I just got distracted.
I have this little thing in my head where I swear I could have saw a headline where Tomashin extends his contract, but I haven't been able to find it. So maybe he didn't. Maybe I dreamt it because I'm so terminally online when it comes to Counter-Strike.
Yeah, you are.
There's players to have. There's players to be had. I'm not sure Lucan was the banger move for it.
Yeah, D, easy.
D. Oscar and Stiko confirmed the rumored team as Inner Circle. And here's where the viewers might need to fill in. I saw that Stico put out a video about this called "I Made a Team," and the org is completely unknown as far as I know. Did he make his own org? Answer me
They
in
don't
the
even have a
comments.
logo on fucking HLTV.
Yeah, no, but like it's an org. They bought out Oscar, so
Yeah,
answer me in
there's
the
money.
comments. Did Stico make his own org? In which case, this is like kind of a different thing. But yeah, how do you rate the team?
I mean, we talked about this roster briefly before. I'm flat out like this is tier 2 and stuck tier 2 type of roster. I don't believe in it very much. If he's gone and secured funding to make this happen, good on you. You might have a better career as a GM, honestly, coming up soon if you can, GM or just a team owner. But this for me is a bit of a meh roster. At least appreciate the fact that they went and got Oscar to try and headline the roster, because that would, if they should have flatly average Orpa as well, it'd be very disappointing. But they've got at least an Orpa who's shown the ability to carry, so that might rescue them. So I think I can't go as low as a D, but a C probably is as generous as I can be as a C. I mean, cool, you got your own org now. You got an org for this team, which is more than a lot of random tier 2 mixes can say.
Like, I would wager, cool. I would hazard a guess and say that Stico was the guy who, if he didn't found the org, I'm not sure that happened. I'm gonna hazard a guess and say that Stico was the guy who sold this team in for the org. So
that's what I'm saying. Like, this was
just
Stico.
that kind of guy.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. He might have a good roles, or like an owner or a GM or something soon. But yeah, I'm not overly in love with this.
Right. Let's move on. Iberian Soul. I'm sorry, I thought that was a really funny name. Iberian Soul is a Spanish-Portuguese team which is formed with old movie star players, including Alex. And I'm just going to pull up the roster now.
I have it in front of me. I can tell you what the score is now. It's an E. We're bringing back E's. I grade on the English A-level system, which goes A, B, C, D, E, U. We don't do Fs. It goes from E to ungradable. And this is an E, because technically there's 5 players. There you go. This is dreadful. Move on.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it would have been amazing 4 years ago. But
it would have been a real plucky tier 1.5 team 4 years ago. Except it doesn't have the part that made those teams work, which was the Orpa. So don't care.
I'm actually going to check. Okay, so this exact constellation has never played together, but minimum 4 of these players have played 140 maps in the past, and that was all Koi/movie star writers.
Yeah, but the part that really makes the teams work, honestly, it's not just Alex and Mopoz. Like that was an important part of their like surprising success. It's also the fact they had a great Orpa on CT side who could just lock shit up, and they don't have that. No offense to Todo, bro. Like, you're not that guy.
Mopos and Davigi have played 514 maps together. It's very much like, I'm not sure if Iberian Soul are an org or if they are just.
It looks like a pug sort of name, and I feel like I've seen it before. You know, in the same way you see lemon dogs pop up every now and then. Or someone's now using ESC. Like,
it could just be that this is like a team, but like an org. But like the team runs itself because they don't have the resources to do proper.
I don't know. Orcs should have a bloody logo, surely.
Yeah, I mean, Lemon Dogs is an org, which is what I mean. But no, okay, it's an orgless tag. It's literally just a tag. So I guess that's good anyway. Nobody's invested money into this team. So
yeah, not a fan.
Right, Cybershock have added Blixie and Glowing as the IGL.
Ooh, yeah. I saw this, and Glowing. He wasn't calling on 9 Pandas in the end, was he? Or was he replaced entirely from... I think, he was. He was calling the entire time on 9 Pandas when he was actually playing. If I'm remembering correctly. I don't think he overlapped with Shalfie. As a caller, at least.
No,
maybe he did. Maybe he was taken off it.
Shalfie was definitely calling as soon as he joined.
Yes, maybe he was taken off it, but yeah, he's called before Shalfie showed up, I think.
It was either Glowing or Seized.
Oh, it might have been Seized, actually. No, so this might be a bit of a weird situation. Blixie's not a terrible, like, sort of individual. Like, he wasn't the part of Aurora Youngblood that really made it work overall. That was obviously Grix. But as far as the riflers go, he was probably one of the sharper ones. So this is not a terrible roster move in that sense. Yeah, because Stinix, whatever, Levantino, Trunic. I mean, as much as I like Trunic, just didn't really make it work on this roster, so they kind of needed to change who was playing up at some point. Maybe Glowing coming in will help fix some of their issues. I don't know. I'm just going to give it a... Is it even much of an improvement? I mean, they did beat NIP. All right, let's give it a B.
Yep. No words. And finally, this is another move which happened just now. One Win have added Sanji as a coach.
You.
Really? For Sanji?
Sanji has never coached anything I've paid attention to. So
he coached that Melbet team.
Exactly.
Which
no
didn't play a map before they were dropped, I think.
Exactly. So I can't grade this. This is nothing. Like, this is... One Win have a coach now.
Yeah.
He's not a guy I've ever witnessed coach a team. I can't grade it. This is a nothing move. Like, his next move I'll be able to grade if One Win play enough CS that I watch. You know, like, I don't... What is this?
Did you like Sanji as a player?
He's a funny meme.
Yeah.
So not really.
I think I did rate him as a supportive player for the era he was in, where like
he
you
was
could get
supportive.
Away. Yeah, where like
he
you
never
could get
exceeded expectation though, and sometimes fell quite far below it. Just like, Sanji got a 1 dig, highlight clip everywhere. Sanji, oh my god, Sanji! Like he was one of those sorts of players, which just whatever. Come on.
Yeah, I think in the 2019 to 2021 era when he was on VP and Avangar, he played that sort of supportive style which you could get away with then, which is do nothing as long as you stay alive, drop guns, and just be a nuisance. Which isn't really in meta right now. Like that's why
anchors now have to
Inters
kill people.
Well. Yeah,
like anchors now have to kill people. Back then, anchors.
He was Inters, but more funny because he had to drop the op to Jame. That's so yeah. So now it doesn't work anymore. But yeah, I mean he retired, so I guess he realized, couldn't he? Yeah, let's see what this One Win team do. And that's the Eternal Shuffle. Nice change of pace that I get to call them out for once.
That was a long Eternal Shuffle.
Yeah.
It was 37 minutes. Let's wrap it up with a rather quick prospects of the week.
Ooh.
I'm going to get started because yours is boring because it's Swedish. I've picked Molodoy, one of the players who was up for this current episode of Prospects in the poll that the members voted on. So remember, if you want to be a member and have influence over these things, you could have voted for Molodoy in the way I wanted people to, but they didn't. So here we are. I couldn't have just put the ballot of just 4 Molodoys because that's not fair. So we're not doing Prospects Molodoy. That's a spoiler. But I hope we can soon before everyone else realizes how fucking good he is, because he is really fucking good. He's had a good week, put up a lot of strong performances, including games against Eyeballers, against NIP, where he hasn't necessarily been able to win these games, but not all of them. But they have had enough victories to justify it, and he's put up nice numbers. So I can't complain. I mean, if you look at his stats for the last 3 months, they're actually crazy. It's 34 maps. He's got an 81 opening rating and an 85 clutching rating with a 98 firepower. He's doing everything he goddamn can on this Amcal roster now. Formerly DMS, obviously. I thought Molodoy would find a spot higher up in the scene. You know, I thought easily a team who needs an AWPer would just go sign him. But instead, Icy took his role on VP, and yeah, some of the other teams filled in different ways. But look, he's a real talent. He's going to be my player to watch for a long time coming now. Like, he's my guy. I'm a Molodoy guy more than I'm a Slime guy. Slime is more of a meme, like just because it's a funny name. And he's a fucking nutcase. Molodoy plays far more by the book, whilst also being far more performant. So, Molodoy, absolute beast.
Yeah. He's one of those guys the where like he was scouted entirely out of Faceit. And he played on Faceit entirely out of internet cafes. So he's kind of one of those Eastern European success stories.
Yeah, love LAN cafes.
Yeah.
Shout out LAN cafes. Shout out Mazinho. Shout out all of Mongols, basically.
Yeah. And he's really impressed at that level. Like he is maybe, yeah. I mean, he's one of the up and coming guys. He's probably going to be talked about next to the next set of op candidates when we eventually move on from players like Jame and Shiro and whoever else might be opping in the high level. Molodoy might be part of the next generation. Who knows?
He is
great stint on
definitely
Amkel so far. Yeah. I picked Male 09, which is maybe a pick I wouldn't do in the past because I'm not as big of a Male 09 fan as some of the Swedes are. But this week, this week could have been his breakout week ever. Because this kid is 15 years old, and for this past week or so, he stepped into Johnny Speeds, into a bit of a mixed Johnny Speeds roster. Johnny Speeds are disbanded. Like, a lot of people looked at this team and went, oh, Johnny Speeds should try again and start practicing. They are disbanded entirely, but they lined up with this roster for Subway Superior League, an event I was covering because I work for the tournament organizer, so I was watching all of these games. Male 09 was the MVP of this team who ended up winning the event. He put up a 131. HLTV won't show the quarterfinals, but they also did happen against some actually pretty competent mixed teams. I predicted that Johnny Speeds would lose in the quarterfinal against Migo Short, which is a team, also an Orgless team, but they actually practice routinely. So yeah, and then they go against eyeballers who are on a pretty good streak. I was probably going to pick Poi for my prospect before this Male 09 thing happened, because after adding Pita as a coach, they've done, I won't say they're doing very good. I did say on Twitter, like, oh, this is one of the best streaks eyeballers have had in the past year or so. And somebody replied, oh, they have 60% win rate in about 14 games. That's very impressive, dude. Yawn. And then I said, context is really fucking important, because eyeballers had 30% win rate for the past 12 months. So with context, but they disappointed. They didn't play anywhere near as good as they should have had. They lost to Johnny Speeds, and Male 09 was the guy who destroyed them. And then they go into the final against Alliance, who looked fine against Lil Mix. They have a new Whopper. Probably should have been an Alliance win. And Male 09, once again, he just takes over. He had a bunch of really cool clips. He had a bunch of really good clutches. He had a bunch of really good plays. And he was just like a bit of an eternal presence, in the sense he was doing something every round, I feel like. That's great.
I will be watching one of those demos this week, by the way. The two demos for Prospects of the Week, for Prospects demos this week, are going to be these two players. It's going to be a Molodoy and a Male 09 this week. Just a heads up for members. And if anyone else wants to become a member to watch those demos with me and hear some jibber jabber, you know where to go.
Yep. So look, the criticism against Male 09. So a lot of people.
Yeah, why do you hate this child?
No, people go big on Male 09 because they think, oh, he's just 15 years old. Soon he's not even 16 yet. He's turning 16 this year, but he's not even 16 years old yet, and he's already played so much. But he's only ever really played domestic opposition. He's had a few opportunities here and there to play better stuff, and it hasn't really clicked for him as much as some other players. And then people go, oh, but he's just 15 years old. Yeah, when Nilo was 15, 16 years old, he was just about to join Young Ninjas, and he was actually playing decent level opposition. So is Male 09 really as big a talent as him? Has been the thought process before. And while this is still just domestic play, this is while he's playing with some very experienced players. He's playing in a very good team. He's playing against some very good teams and on a level he previously just couldn't. And it's a bit of a watershed moment for him, where he's this year is could be a big year for him. It could be one of those years where he breaks into, I would absolutely pick him as an alternative for Mouse NXT now that they have an open spot after PR left.
That'd be a good spot for him. Good roles as well.
Yeah, great position for him, because they need a player. They already have a very young team, so he slots perfectly into that. That's definitely one of them. If there's moves happening in other academies, I would definitely put him up there. Young Ninjas is probably the obvious one people think of, but
yeah, that'd be perfect. So if he plays in Young Ninjas, you'll never play for an IP. So
yeah, perfect. Can't be ruined. So big ups for him. This was a big week for him, and I could pick a lot of holes in the theory that Male 09 is the next big guy in Sweden. Before this week, I'm very convinced this week.
First thing, he's kind of short, so won't be the next big guy.
Yeah, no. So this week he's changed my mind. Very well done. And I think he's 16 in 4 months, which is going to enable him CCT.
58. I'm counting down to 2 hours. Come on, keep it within 2 hours. Keep it within 2 hours.
Okay. He could play CCT in about 4 months.
Okay,
Bam.
cool. All right, thank you for watching. Like if you enjoyed, if you made it this far, you're my hero. Sub for more content. Become a member to get access to all the demo reviews, all the interviews, all the special privileges, the right to vote, own land, enlist, all that stuff when you become a member. And
Get drafted.
Yeah, you will get drafted. That's what comes with the right to vote historically.
Yeah, in the sub war against what? Who would it be?
No one, because no one is my equal. They're either better than me or far worse. There's no in between. But all right, we'll see you next Monday. Yeah, peace.